everybody. This is Dr. Martin Sellers, Dean of the School of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, coming to you again bodily this time. Last week we had a program. It was a wonderful program on therapies of all kinds: pet therapy, theater therapy, literature therapy. It was a wonderful program, but it was not live. It was actually a retake from November, but it was such a good program, so many good people who are expert in their fields, that we thought we'd run it again. And Gary Daniels here producing the program is glad to have live people in the room with him. It helps him along, makes him feel good to have live people here. And with that, I'd like to mention that this program has been going on for getting on to a year now. It is American Culture, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. The program is about how our culture is affected by the many fields of the arts and humanities and social sciences that we learn from. And we have an opportunity on this program to talk about one or another of a program that we teach here, of the many majors that we teach at LMU. But we try to infuse the program also with something that's happening contemporarily, something of today, something that might be a little bit controversial. And as a matter of fact, today's program is about the media communication program we have at Lincoln Memorial University, and we're going to be talking about fake news. That ought to be on your agenda for today, right? That'll be fun to hear about. And we'll talk about a few other things also. We have some wonderful guests in the room here, experts in their fields. We have with us Dr. Richard Vogel, Assistant Professor of Media Communications, Dr. Charlie G., Assistant Professor of Media Communications, also both of them teaching in the School of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. We also have with us Adam, who is with us, who works here at Sigmund. He's going to be talking about Adam Haley. I'm sorry, he lost his last name for a moment there. Be talking with us a little bit about what our students do here at Sigmund, the learning process. We're so lucky here. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day from one of the schools in Division II, and of course there's some talk about moving to Division I athletics. And he was telling me that he's been around to a lot of the schools in the South that are about our size, and not nearly any of them have the auditorium size nor the communication programs that we have here at LMU. So let me hold with that thought, and we'll come back to you in a moment.
Support for today's program is made possible by Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee. Further information on academics, campus life, athletics, educational programs, admissions, and financial aid, you can go to www.lmunet.edu.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. I think the first thing we want to talk about, a couple of first things, I guess, if more than one thing can be first. I want to talk about the media program here at the Lincoln Memorial University. At one time, a few years back, it was called Broadcast Communication. Of course, we've broadened what we do here in all the schools, I guess. We're broadening because of the growth of technology and social media and the many and various ways that we communicate today, in some traditional ways and some not so traditional ways. But one of the things we do in the MediaCom program is we're really lucky to have the Sigmund Center, Communication Center, here on our campus. Before I go further, let me ask the three folks that are sitting here in the booth with us to introduce themselves. I want to ask them to say a few things about their schooling, their background, where they've come from, anything that they want to say a few words. Let's start with Dr. Vogel here to my left.
Good afternoon. Rick Vogel, been here for 4 years now, 3.5 years. Before here, I've got a PhD at Tennessee, and was a director, producer of corporate videos, and consultant, producer, videographer for a number of news shows, and came here.
Good. And Adam?
I'm the only non-doctor. I'm the director of operations currently at the Sigmund Communications Center, also sports coordinator and technical support. I actually graduated from within, at the time it was called Communication Arts, at Lincoln Memorial back in December of 2007. I have stayed on and had many different roles, directing, producing, and pretty much watched and helped the growth of Sigmund Communications. And really trying to bridge what I had here between academics and the business side, and trying to keep that going.
And Dr. G?
I did my undergrad at Middle Tennessee State many years ago. Did my graduate work at University of Tennessee. Rick and I never crossed paths, by the way. Started out in radio, ironically, and then moved on to television news for numerous years and decided to fell into actually academics.
Excellent. And we're so glad you did, because you're here and you're doing some good things with the students. And I wanted to ask you, Adam, before we go further, I do want to ask these other two gentlemen, but Adam, I know you have to leave quickly for some other duties. Can you tell us what we do in Sigmund that might be of a help? How are students learning by being in the Communication Center?
Well, from my perspective, communications I kind of feel is different than necessarily like a business or a medical or a law degree, in the sense that there are a lot of things you can learn from a book, but with the way technology is growing, there's a lot of things where you kind of have to touch it and feel it and kind of get used to it. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy that I had as a student here, and seeing the students come through. There's actually one of their students, his name's Brandon, he's a sophomore in the major, and he's directing our basketball games. He's directing our sporting events. He's on air right now. So he's kind of one of the ones that's over here at Sigmund right now, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to have to leave here in a minute, is because we have a broadcast later tonight of basketball for television, and that's students can do camera, they can do audio. We have I kind of feel like, and I've not branched out, I've not been as like these other the two doctors here have been to different universities, but I think we have the unique situation where we have a communication center that has a functioning television studio and 2 radio studios. Our stuff is seen on a cable network and also online, streamed everywhere, and I think that's one of the advantages, as well as the fact that you can. It's such a good teacher to student ratio that you can get hands on. I was on air my freshman year. Mm-hmm. My first semester in college, I was already on the air doing weather, and I think that's a plus for Lincoln Memorial. Is we don't necessarily say, okay, you're the upperclassman, you get to touch this camera, or you get to do this. If you come in as a freshman, you can touch, you can learn the basics within your first year here. And with that, we obviously an educational center for the students, but we also are here for the community, for university needs. We're part of the LMU Sports Network, which we televise probably anywhere from 80 to 100 sporting events within an academic year, being from August to April. The past couple of years, a lot of the students can put on their resume that they've worked in NCAA tournament for television, and that's the way I've kind of explained to them. That's kind of a gold star on their resume that says, "Hey, I worked in NCAA tournament."
I think it's fantastic, and I have a lot of students that are not in our media communication program, but they're working up here anyway. They're in business. They're in.
We have business. We have biology. We've had some history ones.
I think somebody.
Yeah.
And they're, to a person, they all say that the experience they're getting here. You mentioned the technical side and the expertise with TV and radio, but I just know for a fact when I see a student come in as a freshman and she's in my class. I teach politics, and then as a senior, I see her confidence level has exponentially risen, and part of it is because she's over here working part-time, full-time. I can think of a number of students, I won't name their names right here, but who have risen because of their experience here. You know, this sounds silly, but I liken it, I know this is off the wall, it's kind of like nursing, because there's theoretical, then there's the clinical. And you have to have both. You can't just have one side or the other. And here it's the same thing with the Dr. G and Dr. Vogel's classes. They are theoretical. They are hands-on at the same time. And the students are seeing the application right in front of them here. And, as I started to say before we broke for a few minutes, I was talking to friends of mine from another college in Farmville and others that I'm familiar with, and they don't have it's not just the size of Tex Turner that we're so lucky to have, gifted to have, if you will, but it's the technology that we have available, particularly the live streaming. Not a lot of colleges have that. So we're on the air locally, from Pineville down to South Union County, east over this way, and then west down to Campbell County. But it's when I'm at home I'm distant. I was traveling not long ago, and I got on a computer and I listened to a ball game. But I'll tell you, I got really angry last year at this time. Well, a little bit beyond this time, March Madness. I couldn't get live streamed the final LMU versus, I'm not going to mention their name, game in Texas because it wasn't allowed to be live streamed for some way. It made me mad. I don't know why that was, but I couldn't get. I was in Texas at the time. I was in Austin. I couldn't get that one game, so I had to get on the phone and ask somebody, give me play-by-play, so that I could get it. And maybe I was doing something wrong, but I couldn't get that game for some reason.
You've also got a lot of broadcasting rights. There are different
Of course,
corporations that
yeah.
have a lot of, when it comes to like the March Madness, they've got pretty well got that tied up.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. We had a lot of students go to that game, pep band and so on, and I get goosebumps just thinking about how lucky, how wonderful that is that we're doing what we do. Anything else you want to say? I know you have to go, and I need to grill these two experts who have these PhDs now. You know?
Yeah, you can grill the doctors. I've just got my bachelor's, but
grill the doctors.
But you
I like
play a
that.
doctor on TV.
I do play a doctor on TV. I tell people that all the time when they're like, "I'm sick." I'm like, I got no diagnosis for it. I just play one on TV. I've kind of seen both of them teach, and I can say that these two are really good at what they do when it's teaching. And again, there are the books that you have to learn and the different terminologies and angles and connectors and stuff to that nature. But there's also the aspect of actually running a camera, actually touching an audio board, actually physically touching the equipment and getting used to how it feels, how heavy it is, and how you got to really actually work it. And I think that's one of the advantages we have here is not only on the academic side with them, but they've also started utilizing Sigmund as well in the sense that as they're teaching the aspects and the ways of television and radio, they can work. Those students can work their way into experience here, whether it be work study, a practicum class. We got some part-time student workers, and eventually that works to their advantage once they leave here because they've already built a resume while they were in college. A lot of jobs say must have so many years of experience. Well, a lot of students, once they jump into it here, they have experience and they can hit the ground running. We've got some people that have been placed. One of our graduates was an intern with the Golf Channel in Orlando, and she stayed on down there. We got a graduate. She actually interned with David Letterman. This was back in the early 2000s. She now works for Scripps down in Knoxville. We've had a lot of them go into the news media in the Knoxville markets and other places. So we've been able to place people in the field of communications and in the field of media communications. It's just a matter of getting them the experience and getting them the know-how, so once they leave here with that diploma, they can hit the ground running.
Yeah. You know, I have a tendency to look at upcoming jobs for growing markets in various areas because we have, in arts, humanities, social sciences, we have, 10 majors, I think, now, and a couple of graduate programs. This is one field that's growing, and then by the year 2030, it will be multiplied the number of jobs that are available, and not just jobs in the current areas of concern, but there are jobs that will be existent, as you all know, that we don't even know about yet because communications is broadening and developing so much. Also, I wanted to say, Adam, that we have a number of two-year colleges in the area. We've got two-year colleges all over the place, but that feed LMU. We have a lot of two-year students. And then I talked to Gary about this a lot of times. We have a lot of military coming out who have collected a collection of courses, a smattering and that kind of thing. If somebody really wants to put their sweat equity in and shoulder to the grindstone, I think that's the phrase, and come in here and really learn a really good career field, it's right here. It's right here waiting for them. We have the excellence. We have the opportunity, somebody with two-year college, and if they even haven't had through the articulation agreements that we have with the colleges here in Tennessee and Kentucky, even if they haven't had a MediaCom course, we can, Dr. Vogel could attest to this, we can start them up and running right off the bat. So there's so much opportunity here in this program. And I want to publicly thank you and your predecessor and others who've been here. I didn't know it was called Communication Arts. You got me on that one. I was here in 2003. I thought it was Broadcast Communications.
No, when I was from 03 to 07, it was Communication Arts, and then they changed. They changed that. I think it was. I don't know what the change was from there, but it may have been to Broadcast Communications, and now it's a Media Communications.
Yeah,
so.
I think it did. It shifted over a bit, but
I actually get to use this phrase. I dated myself.
That's a terrible thing to say. You dated yourself. Does that mean nobody else would date you? Is that the? No, no, you're a married guy, so that couldn't be the case.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that input, and stick around as long as you want. I want to ask these two guys, if we could, about the program. I think we should start off by saying something about the program in media communications. Normally, though, I do say something about LMU in general, and So let me start with that. Let me backtrack a little bit. I normally say what a beautiful day it is, and then I tell a little bit of a lie and say I walked across campus over to Sigma Center. I'm pretty lazy these days. I drive over here from Avery Building, for those of you that know the campus, and it is a gray day and it's raining a little bit. But I'll tell you what, it's the most beautiful campus in the world. I don't care what the weather is like. We have it right here at LMU. I'm telling you, we got the buildings, we got the people, we got the programs, and we're building. Thank you to the Board of Trustees. We have the Valley of the Sports developing right behind us here to a little bit to the west. We have a new Vet Tech academic didactic building coming up here to the west. We're over by what I think of as DuPont Circle, small DuPont Circle here in Harrogate. We have programs developing. We have an academic council program that we go to on Thursdays where new programs are talked about. We have a Master of Public Health. We have a Master of Nursing Business, I think it's called. I may have the name wrong. Just things that are cutting edge right here at Lincoln Memorial University here in Harrogate, Tennessee. It just is enough to blow your mind. We have 9 schools: Allied Health, School of Business, Carter Morris School of Education, School of Math and Science, the Carroll School of Nursing, DeBusk College of Osteopathic Medicine, the Duncan School of Law, College of Veterinary Medicine, and of course the Paul V. Hamilton School of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. And should you think I memorized all that, I read that list off of this every time I read it. I read it because my brain is not big enough to control all that. In the arts, humanities, and social sciences, we are kind of the broadest, if you will, the broad-based school, because we have everything from art to music to media communication to philosophy, social work, political science, and many, many more. We do have an art in the GAP program. So those of you that are familiar with Harrogate and Claiborne County, one of the 4 towns in Claiborne County is Cumberland Gap. It's a very historical town. It's a small town. It's right in the cleavage, if you will, between the several mountains, Cumberland Mountains, as well as the saddle of the Gap, which at one time was our way of getting from Tennessee to Middlesboro, Kentucky, and back. And now, of course, we have the Great Tunnel. But that little town, don't let it fool you. It has history. We just did a little map not long ago, the faculty and me in the school, and you can pick one of these little maps up at the Pine Tree Inn. Am I saying that right? What's the name of the little restaurant down there? You guys know?
Pineapple Tree Room?
Pineapple Tree Room. Pineapple Room. Or the Gap Creek Restaurant, or the Angelo's Restaurant. I think those are the 3 restaurants. They each have one of these little maps, and what the map says is 7 historical sites in 70 minutes. And if you can watch that map, follow that map around the little town, you'll see those 7 historical sites. There's much more than 7, but if you go to those 7 historical sites and then stop at one of those 3 restaurants, they'll give you a free drink with a meal. Isn't that wonderful? I think it's a wonderful thing. So much to say. But anyway, Cumberland Gap has Arts in the Gap. We have an arts studio, an art co-op, and we have programs all throughout the year, mostly and mainly in May and June, and it trickles into July for all of us who are interested in the way that crafts have developed, and old-time music and sculpturing. There's all sorts of programs that we have. Go to the web. Go to the Lincoln Memorial University website and look for Arts in the Gap. You'll see everything. I'm not going to be able to say it all right here. It'd be too much to talk about. So we have a lot of, that's my commercial for LMU. As I tell Gary, I got to say a little commercial for LMU. So much going on. It's just developing by leaps and bounds. Nobody 20 years ago would ever believed, for those of you who've been around the area, believed that LMU could be what it is today. It's fantastic. Now, let's focus on the program, Media Communication. It's a great program. There's a lot of students. And let me say this, Dr. Vogel. As long as I've been here, I've seen students who have changed majors. I'm not going to tell you a lie. A lot of them change out of math into something else. And that would have been me, because I'm just not a math person. But I don't know that I recall anybody ever changing from MediaCom into something else. It strikes me, if I recall, they change into MediaCom, and stay there. So it's an attractive major where students who want to understand how we express ourselves to others, basically, is what it is. Students are attracted into it, and they stay there, and they just love it. And we're doing a good thing. Tell us about the program.
One of the one of the misconceptions of media is that you have to go in front of the camera. And I am one of those that never want to be in front of a camera. I've spent a lot of my life avoiding that. So our students leave here with a few options. They could go into, there's 3 tracks, a sales track if they want to make a lot of money and sell advertising time. They have a creative track if they want to write, produce, direct, create corporate videos, where I did a lot of my work, commercials, public service announcements, movies. There's that track, and there's a track for people who want to pursue journalism. We do not teach how to do fake news because that doesn't really exist, but we'll come back to that later. But there's a lot of options. A lot of people don't realize how many options there are in the media. A lot of my students think they have to go in front of the camera and talk, and they can avoid that if they want to. If they want to do that, we'll certainly get them ready. We have a number of very talented students who have great careers ahead of them because of their ability to communicate on air.
Let me ask you, if I can interrupt,
well.
and I apologize for interrupting, but when you say media, what does that incorporate in your? What is the whole bailiwick, if you will?
Well, that's why we changed the title when I came here from broadcast communication to media communication, because broadcast was, to me, an anachronistic term. It was radio and television, and newspapers, of course. But the media are growing. There are so many more options to communicate, and there are people making money on YouTube. For some reason, people are fascinated watching other people play video games, and some of those people are making a lot of money doing that. There are a range of media options with different skill sets for each, so the idea is to prepare our students. I have a few students whose career goals include being a YouTube star. That's a different skill set that working on. I don't know if it's hard to find the exact right magic that makes somebody a star, but that's kind of true in every field. So I think the media are expanding. What do you think, Charlie?
I think you're right. I think that, and that's the thing too. Banning about the term broadcast, it seems so passé these days, and it's media dissemination, and so we always think about the traditional legacy media dissemination through radio, television, newspaper, but you have to also think about the web and distributing through different channels on the web, Vimeo, YouTube, and even now with apps, through app dissemination is something we need to think about as well.
Yeah, I have an app. I won't say which one it is, 'cause I'm not going to advertise for them, but I can watch my grandson in his crib, and I'm 100 miles away, and I can watch it, and I can move the camera, which my daughter doesn't like. Dad, leave the camera alone. I can like watch her.
Do they have an app so I can watch my daughter in college?
You need a drone to follow her around. I get that for sure. But let me ask both of you this: one of the things in pedagogically speaking, or learning speaking, how students learn, a big thing today is that students are working with faculty on projects, on scholarly work, and so on. Are either of you working with and alongside students? Are they learning in that way from you?
Right now, I'm working on a documentary with Rachel Boyo, and students are working with Rachel directly, and I've taken a few out with me and Rachel on shoots.
What are they doing with the both of you?
It's a documentary. It's Rachel's. She gets all the credit for it. Rachel's putting together a documentary looking at Appalachian culture, music, history, telling all of that through a number of fascinating people she's met all over the region. So she's getting them on tape and to save their stories and save the history that they carry with them. Mm-hmm. It's a remarkable project. I have a student going out with her this weekend. Mm-hmm. 2 others are working with her also. It's a great opportunity. I love going out with them. I've always tried to take students out in any shoot I'm on, because there's teaching moments, and every time you're out doing anything, there's a teachable moment. So, and they also are doing some other videos that, I'll go out in the field when the scheduling works, when appropriate, to just give them pointers, look at that shot. We had the law celebration on campus, and that was very interactive. My students were there with a bunch of cameras, and I'd just meander behind them occasionally and say, look at that shot, or move the camera, or, just think, how are you going to get that sound? And
I tried to get in front of the camera every time they moved around. But they wouldn't take me. Maybe I'm not the best looking guy in the world, but none of your students, they wanted to see Gary Wade, who is our DeSalle dean and also was on the Supreme Court, and they wanted to see all the faculty and so on. They wouldn't take me. I don't understand why.
And they know better not to put me in front of the camera because they just have to edit me out.
Charlie, are you working with any students right now, or maybe in the past?
Well, I have in the past, yes. I was working on a documentary. I'm still hoping the process of doing some post-production on it. But I did take students to the National Archives in D.C. to help pull pictures and documents about a historical documentary I'm working on about POW camps. And then we took them. I took them to do some one interview with one living prisoner of war at the time.
I see.
He may have passed by now, but and then I've also taken him to interview other academics in terms of to get more sourcing at other universities. So we'd go interview people who have written extensively about prisoners of war in the United States, and so get some of their background information to put into the documentary. So
how did that become a passion of yours? I mean, it sounds like a really interesting study, actually.
Well, for the most part, instead of me doing all the behind the camera and everything else, I became more of a director, which is very pedagogically based, like Rick talked about. That you can whisper in their ear while they're getting the shot to say, okay, are you looking at this? Are you seeing this kind of thing? I'm seeing this. Maybe you should consider this. So, in a way, you're coaching them along or mentoring along in the process of why they're doing something.
What a great learning experience. But why prisoners of war? Where did that come from? Is it something you're interested in yourself?
I found out in Crossville that there was actually a POW camp, part of a larger camp throughout the United States. But a lot of people did not know there was a prisoner of war camp in Crossville, and actually housed at one time German and Italian prisoners together, which was one of the few camps in the United States to do that.
That's amazing. I don't know if it's a rumor or not, or a myth, but somebody told me that right here in Harrogate, there were German soldiers that were encamped here as prisoners. And now I may be wrong on that. Please don't take that as gospel. And we'll have to look that up, because that might be fake news. I'm not sure which we're going to talk about. We're going to take a break here for a few minutes. Please return in about a minute or two. Right, Gary?
On Wednesday evenings, you can tune your radio to WLMU and hear the best blues in the tri-state area with your host, Gary Daniels. He'll be playing the best blues artists of today and the best blues artists of yesteryear. Everything from Robert Johnson, Buddy Guy, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Muddy Waters, and many more. It's Wednesday Evening Blues from 9 to 11, right here on 91.3 WLMU.
There is a jewel in the crown right here in our Cumberland Mountains, and it's the Abraham Lincoln Library and Museum, located here on the historic campus of LMU. It houses one of the top 5 Lincoln and Civil War collections in the entire world, and it's right here in our own backyard, located here in Harrogate, Tennessee, at the main entrance of LMU's campus. For more information, their number is 423-869-6235. And on the World Wide Web at lmunet.edu/museum.
Weekday mornings, over on our media partner WCXZ AM 740, you can tune your radio dial to Amos in the Morning. Host Tom Amos presents news, interviews, insight, and a little music. That's Amos in the Morning, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, on WCXZ AM 740. And online at 74wcxz.com.
If you're a fan of bluegrass music, then our sister station, WCXZ AM 740, has the program for you. Each weekday morning from 9 till noon, you can tune the dial to Bluegrass for Breakfast with your host, Larry Carter, where he will serve you up a good mess of bluegrass, everything old and new and in between. That's Bluegrass for Breakfast on AM 740 WCXZ.
91.3 The Gap, WLMU, Harrogate, Tennessee.
Here we are back again with American Culture, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, and I'm sitting here with two, I call them experts in their field, because anybody that knows as much as these two guys know are certainly experts. Richard Vogel, Dr. Richard Vogel, Assistant Professor of Media Communications, Dr. Charlie G., Assistant Professor of Media Communications, and certainly Gary Daniels producing a program. He's writing us notes and asking questions as we go along. And I was going to ask Charlie G. why he goes by Charlie, but I'm not going to go that way, because these are personal questions we're not supposed to ask. One of the programs we had recently, one of the young ladies sitting next to me mentioned something, and I said, well, you're not married? And I felt really terrible afterwards. She rolled her eyes, and you know what that means. It means, when I get out of here, I'm going to kill you, is basically what she meant. But
well, I'll tell you why I don't go like Charles. No, I mean, the thing is that if some of us have been traumatized maybe as a child, but when your parents use your formal name and they include the middle name, then you're in trouble. And so that's why I feel like Charles is not appropriate, but Charlie's more relaxed, more reflects the personality.
I used to go by Ricky, and then my girlfriend, when I was 25, said once I hit 25, I was not allowed to be Ricky anymore. So I had to cut it to Rick, and that's what I go today.
You know, it's interesting. My father was Charlie, and my brother is Ricky. I don't know what's going on. I don't have a Gary, I'm sorry. There's no Gary to family, but two brothers, a brother and a father. And my father always went by Charles, because, of course, I call him Dad, but Charles was the way he went about the world. But thank you for that, Charlie. I appreciate that. We want to get back to, we've been talking about the program that we have at LMU in Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences, Media Communications, and one thing I wanted to ask both of you, too, before we go on to some other interesting questions. Is there a certain kind of a student that you find comes to this program different than? In other words, is there a distinctive about media communication that draws a certain kind of student? You know, if you ask me about mathematics, I would say, yeah, it's somebody who's, got mathematics on the brain, loved it their whole life, just carries a calculator in their pocket. What kind of person, or maybe I'm wrong? What would you say to that, either of you?
I'd say those who don't like math. That's always the running joke. You're terrible at math, you go into communication.
Some of them just don't. Some of them want to be a star. That always worries me a little bit, because they don't realize how much hard work there is between today and when they're a star. And it's not like there are no job openings for star. These are people that work their way up very slowly. I've met a few people that may have achieved star status, and I know how long it took to get there. Students that they're really not a type. Again, those who want to be a star, but there are those that want to create art in some form. Whether it's a documentary, like Charlie was talking about, or a movie, or commercials, or they love informing people, then they want to do news, or sports. I have a lot of students that want to go into sports journalism. A lot of them, to be honest, aren't really sure what it is. But that's our job to show them. Here's the skill sets you need. Here's what a sports journalist really is. And we have a few that are doing an outstanding job of, they're student athletes, but they are becoming journalists very quickly and doing a very good job.
What about going on to graduate school? Is that something we encourage? Is it something you have to do to get into communications? What would you all, Charlie? What about that?
There's two schools of thought. People that I've known that have gone on, that have worked in the industry, that actually had a graduate degree, and then went into the field. I don't know if they're better prepared or not. I mean, they may have a different world view a little bit, but I don't think it's necessarily to succeed in the industry. But I do know there are some that maybe delay going into industry to get a little more. Because once you get into the graduate world, you're getting away from the practical and more theoretical. So I don't know exactly how you make that very applicable in the field in a way.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense. It strikes me that somebody going into graduate school in this field is probably thinking about teaching somewhere, or maybe. A lot of us in all of our fields teach part-time as adjuncts. We have a lot of adjuncts who are, I've said this a million times, well, maybe not a million, but I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for an adjunct professor teaching communications. The first course I took at a community college was by someone working at the local newspaper who it was the first time I realized I can actually use this quote-unquote stuff in English composition. I couldn't, So I think that's. We have a lot of good students. I know some of them who are going on to graduate school. So I know one who went on to law school from our program here. Let me ask you this though. ETSU, UT, I'll give them a plug, Kentucky, University of Kentucky. What is there a distinctive about our program at Lincoln Memorial University that we could speak of where we would say to a student, this is what we have to offer that you might not actually see, or be different if you went elsewhere?
Excuse me. Hands-on opportunities from literally, if they want to get on the equipment, get at Sigmund, work in the TV, radio, work with us. They can start from day one they get here. Larger schools, you don't always have that opportunity to get right on the equipment to get the practical skill sets growing. Here we have, I know Tyler Rowlett's been here a lot, and I think he came in here as a freshman and went to work because he loves radio and he's great at it. So that's what I think small college or medium, whatever size we are, I think we offer that unique opportunity to get right on the equipment. Some bit larger schools, Troy and I are the professors here, and I know some large schools I've talked to students who don't ever get to sit in their professor's office and talk with them. I think both of us enjoy those opportunities to sit and talk with them. And they're learning from us all the time.
That's if they come see us.
Yeah, they have to meet us halfway. They have to come by, and then they come sit.
Well, you guys' doors are always open. I've been up there many times, and I think one of y'all has a basket of candy on your desk. I think it might be, or maybe that was social work. Well, either way, still there's positive. And Charlie, Dr. G, you came out of Pittsburgh. And what program was that? That was in...
that was Duquesne University.
Duquesne, I'm sorry.
So it was a mid-size school, I guess you could say.
Do you see that same, as Dr. Vogel was talking about, that same sort of...
We had, when you talk about program size, it's much different in a way, but to emphasize the really big state schools, like I said, UT, MTSU is now, I think, the largest in this state, if I remember correctly. With over 26 or something, 28,000 in student undergrad population. And so the thing is, I graduated there a while back when it was much smaller. So the thing is that that's one thing LMU does offer. And that was my goal at the other institution, was I really wanted students to be freshmen or sophomores to get hands-on, because that gets them involved in student media and things like that really enhance their portfolios. And that's the goal, is to really beef up that portfolio before you get out of here and have a well-represented portfolio of work to show potential employers. So the sooner you get your hands on, that's always my belief, the sooner you get your hands dirty in things and learning, even if it's not great programming, whatever, that you're learning. And so that's the thing that I've always strived for.
I think it's fascinating because we have a good connection with several of the stations in Knoxville. They come up here and do some TV broadcasts, and our students flock to that wherever it is in Cumberland Gap, whether it's historically or something creative. And there's a great connection. They see that. They see, students don't think they're real professionals. In a way, they are, but they don't really think of themselves until they get out and get a job at a place that's not connected to the university. They see themselves as academic. When they see these folks come up, or from Lexington come down, and they're just so enthusiastic about what's going on. You going to say something?
Yeah, we're talking about students that have left here and gone on. We talked to a student who was also our valedictorian of the university, went on to intern at the Golf Channel. One of our students just got nominated for an Emmy Award for her work at Channel 10.
Wow.
Is it?
Okay.
Outstanding.
Anyway, yeah, and she...
that's breaking news to me, but okay.
And she got Emmy Award for breaking news.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
For her coverage of when Pat Summitt passed away.
Oh, gotcha.
So she was one of the producers on that segment, and she's up for an Emmy.
Oh, man, I'll tell you, we have some really good opportunities here, and I want to say it again. If you're coming out of the military, you're in a 2-year program, you don't have anything, give us a call here at Arts, Humanities, Social Sciences. Just call the university, go on the webpage. We have a program that's outstanding here, as are all of our programs. I want to talk about something else, though. I know you guys are biting at the bit to talk about fake news. We hear a lot about this. I do, certainly, and any of us that are keeping an eye on whatever channel we watch these days. You know, I was in class the other day. I mentioned Walter Cronkite, and I'm not sure that any of the students in front of me knew who I was talking about. I just, it's kind of like saying Edsel to people who never heard of a Ford Edsel, that kind of thing.
Would our students believe now that a journalist was the most trusted man in America? Yes. Especially when they're being told not to trust media.
It's amazing.
But Walter Cronkite was an extraordinary anchor for CBS for so many years.
30 years at least.
And I remember when he passed away a few years ago, during a time of national crisis, they always turned to him still for commentary and context.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It was
and
remarkable.
there was a handful of commentators that were on the major channels in those days that we trusted, like we would trust our parent. Interestingly, though, right now, more people, believe it or not, from surveys that I've read, trust congressmen more than they trust the media. Now, that's interesting. And that gets into the subject of fake news. How would you define, both of you, how would you define fake news? What is that about?
Fake news doesn't exist. I agree with the NPR commentator that said fake news is lie. News is reporting something that happened. Now, do reporters sometimes get facts within a story wrong? Sure. Do they sometimes misinterpret things? Sure. But fake news does not exist. That would be a lie. So I think it is an attempt by certain people to discredit the media and take away any criticism the media might offer or telling of events that aren't desired to be heard, that others don't want to hear. So I think it actually undermines all of us in our attempt to be informed citizens. If we're told that the people informing us are getting it wrong, they make errors. If you watch CNN, who's been occasionally vilified for being fake news, they make errors. Sometimes I don't agree with their journalistic judgment, but they don't lie.
Let me, Dr. G, you want to mention your thoughts on fake news, what it is?
Well, I think Rick summed it up well. It's almost propaganda, if you will, to discredit the media. And I really take umbrage when someone's talks about the idea of fake news, because I spent a chunk of my life going out covering stories, empirically verifying the information to be accurate and truth, and make sure that I'm not being lied to, that I pass along to the viewers and listeners. And so to hear fake news and everything else, it angers me to hear that, and saying that and even some of my former students I see on social media saying, well, should I put enemy of the state as on my Vita? And I'm going, come on.
Put one of those round red rings with the cross in it on your forehead.
Exactly.
Right. Let me now. Don't get mad at me. I know.
No.
I'm just the caretaker here. But let me give you some examples and see your thoughts on these. Okay. This is something I looked up on the web. Of course, we go to the web when we don't know what we're talking about. That's me. I use my cell phone all the time for that purpose. A couple of examples. In November, it was said that because of Trump taking office. Now these came from what I think of as prestigious news organs: New York Times, Politico, Guardian, and so on. Okay, in November, after President Trump took office, multiple groups of transgender teens committing suicide. Okay, it was absolutely not true. Another one in November after the election: pervasive computer hacking in once solid Democratic states is why those 3 or 4 states to the north became, set themselves up for supporting Trump. Let me give you a couple more. Trump's Treasury Secretary pick, Steve Mnuchin, foreclosed on thousands of elderly homeowners, which absolutely nothing in that. New York Times, President Trump, his White House purges its website of all information about climate change because it doesn't exist. Absolutely not true. It's not. So these are the kinds of things I think some of us are thinking. Those examples sound to me more than a mistake. It's something else, and I'm not sure what it is.
The climate change story from multiple people looked at it, and it was gone, and then it was reinstated.
Yeah.
So it was not there for a while after he was elected. The other story, I'm sorry.
The Steve Mnuchin, I think that he was with Home Wide or Countrywide or something.
Country Time.
Country Time, and that there were reports that someone verified. There were reports that certain tactics were used to, I wouldn't say mislead, but there was some ethical, questionable behavior. Not necessarily that Steve participated in, Mr. Mnuchin, but that maybe underlings did to further the goal of gobbling up, I guess, property.
Did Mr. Mnuchin order these? Was he complicit? Also, some of these stories are reports from other sources saying this thing happened. So again, I have to look at all those to find out for sure. But sometimes the media are reporting what other people are reporting.
Yes.
And they will state in the report X or Y has reported the following thing happened.
Yeah,
so there's a difference between a New York Times saying this happened and saying this report,
an AP report or something come from another location. Right. And forgive me for I didn't mean to bring these to your attention without having told you in advance. But in reality, I really did mean to do that because I like to throw 3 things out and make you guys sweat a little bit over here. No, but I'm teasing you. But here's the thing that I wonder about, and if you could help me out with this. When we have a story about a president, and this is true of President Bush, it happened to Bill Clinton in several cases, where a news media, and maybe there's no answer to this, I'm just going to throw this out. The news media, some agent within the media, a journalist or somebody else, they make the story purposely sound so that it is politically against or in favor of someone. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like twisting it or heightening it, or and I don't like it because you and I, all of us, we want to hear the truth, and we're begging to hear the truth, and then we hear something like that and find out later it was twisted a bit. How do we deal with that?
It's almost like yellow journalism, the return of yellow journalism in a way.
Yeah, good point. Excellent.
It also goes to something we talked about at an earlier program, where how we define journalism. Mm-hmm. A lot of the things I see posted on social media are very inflammatory, but you go check where they got it from, and it is a site which is partisan, and their mission is to inflame. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of times up to the consumer to find out where they're getting the news from. Is it a legitimate site? Have they twisted or edited the facts to inflame a group, mm-hmm. or make one group look poor? There's a lot of other variables in there.
Let me ask you this one. This is a President Trump suggestion or example. The other night he was talking about immigration problems, Syrians coming into certain countries, and that the crime rates went up, right? And then he mentioned Sweden. He said, Sweden, the problems having in Sweden. And then, for the next day or two, I think this happened 2 days ago, it just went crazy, well, how could he say, and then people from Sweden. But at the heart of it, there was, in fact, a rise in crime. It wasn't able to be shown precisely and exactly that it was Syrians exactly, but it was a rise in crime that dated about the same date range as immigrants came in. And I guess if you would comment on that, but what I wanted to really get to is, why do we have to burn, whether we like Donald Trump or not isn't the point. Why would we burn an Obama, a Bush, a Trump, when something like that happens? And his claim was, and I think it's true, I have no reason to doubt it, that it was some of his staff that came up with these projected figures or figures that he was
There were
quoting.
some news reports that were coming out of Sweden in areas that had large refugee populations, and there was there's some backlash too. There's some Swedish nationalists, not in the sense of fascist or Nazi-style nationalists, but Swedes who are opposed to immigration, and there is crime. There's a lot of layers to that story, and I'm not defending President Trump, but from what I hear, he was listening to some news information that was talking about those stories, and that's what he was relating.
He cited a Fox News documentary on it.
Yes.
Other reports have said the statistics show a weak correlation between immigration and crime rate. Mm-hmm. The president did give Sweden a wonderful opportunity to put out a video seen by 4 million people that made fun of the entire thing and talked, and in doing that promoted what a great place Sweden is to visit.
Yeah.
So they came out ahead. But when the president speaks, it is relevant. Nordstrom broke a streak when they dropped his wife's daughter's fashion line. Nordstrom was the first company to be mentioned by the president whose stock did not go down. So when he speaks, it does affect companies, jobs, economies.
There's responsibility in speech, is there?
Very much. So when he talks about Sweden and if suddenly gives the impression it's dangerous, well, I'm thinking of taking my daughter on a trip this summer. Should I rule out Sweden? And that's when he speaks, it is relevant. And it is the job of the media to jump all over.
I'm not sure that was the point he was making. I think the point, and I think you would agree, was that it has something to do with immigration. It wasn't that he loved it. He said, you know how he is. He says, I love Sweden. They're all beautiful people. And I would go in a heartbeat. But I think the point that drives me a little nutty is that, we had to continue to harass this story, to talk about it over and over again after all of the facts came out. Can't we get on to something else? And let me ask you this too, because I feel there's a need to say this. You have this president who's never been in politics, and I've studied politics, and I know for a fact that when you come up the chain of politics you start out at Claymore County, you end up a House member, you become a senator, you become a governor, and then you become whatever, an appointee to one of the presidents. These are people who have been schooled in exactly what you're saying, how to speak. Now here we got a guy who has not had that, if you will, application training. Shouldn't we take that into account, or does that not matter?
Something there, and I do have to leave a little bit early, and I'll throw it to Charlie. One of the things, there's so many news. Today, NASA reported that they found 7 planets in the Goldilocks zone in a solar system where there might be life. In San Francisco over the weekend, torrential, horrible flooding. But I wouldn't know that listening to the news, because you talked about one issue. The only thing going on is what Donald Trump said today, and there is a lot of news going on that I wish America could have access to in our traditional media. They're missing the stories, and they're
like the veterans. Even Veterans Administration, you find a lot of veterans not getting the health care they need. That's a news story worthwhile.
It is. There are some international programs that are happening, like science between Russia and America. We've been beaten up on Putin and so on, but there are some medical programs that have been bringing people here and we there, because we have expertise. They have expertise. Nobody ever talks about that.
Right, down in Oak Ridge with Department of Energy and the various facilities down there, you have a large number of Russians working there, and you think of the space program too.
So there's a sensationalism that goes along with this that I think sells. It's a process. Dr. Vogel, I want to thank you. I know you got to leave. Thank you for all your help.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for developing with Dr. G the program that we have. It's an excellent program.
Thank you.
And we appreciate all you do. And so, Dr. G, you're here. You're going to have to answer all these questions,
Great.
No, we only have a few more minutes anyway. Don't worry about it. I do want to ask you, Dr. G, about this idea of sensationalism, and I know you're familiar with this. We do have this sort of, we need to sell the news, or maybe a commentator needs to make his or her name. Dr. Vogel's talking about the fame and fortune kind of thing, become a star. How do we in academia work with students so they don't think that way? Or are we not doing that?
Well, I mean, outside of MCOM, that I teach a speech class for general education, and so I spent the day today, for the most part, meeting with students on the next speech to make sure what is credible information, credible sourcing. That's the one thing I'm really pushing, and and Dr. Vogel teaches a little bit more the journalism gathering thing than I teach more the technical aspect. But the thing is, I'm trying to get them to think, even from a media literacy standpoint, about what information and where they're getting it from, and how is it credible. And so they come in and says, well, I said there's some keywords. If you hear association or council or consortium or institute, these are some of the things that you should give a red flag, and that could be PR firms. But I said not all those are bad, and I gave examples. And so, but I wanted them to think, use critical thinking. That's the one thing I think a lot of people in media are not using. Critical thinking. You need to have more and more people verify or sources. Look at their sources. If instead of sticking with one source, but go to multiple sources to see if that is true. And that way, and I'm trying to get even the speech students who are throughout different programs in not just MCOM, in the university to think. It says, okay, think this through. Do you feel this is credible? Do they have an agenda, or are they there to help you or society in general? And I even have them questioning now. I probably have them scared to death. They're trying to figure out, okay, if I go to the library and get these different sources, so they're getting very paranoid. And I said, well, okay, let's back off. But about even academic things, I wanted them to think about, okay, where is your information coming from? Is it a credible source? Is it a credible journal? Is it peer reviewed? Things like all these things, critical thinking applied, that will hopefully help in using media literacy. And I think that maybe the population in general will cut through all these sensational headlines going, okay, whatever, and not believe in what that entity is trying to sell.
I just hope we don't lose that our media, and I'm thinking here of like newspapers and TV, that they don't lose credibility such that we begin to throw up our hands and say, I'm not listening to anything anymore, because that would be the reason we are a great nation. I thoroughly believe this is because we communicate. I think we are a democracy. The way we are, I think we're the most powerful nation in the world. I think power is not only military might, it's also educational opportunities, scientific wherewithal, and so on. We are powerful in those ways because we have open communications. We have the First Amendment to the Constitution. And if we lose credibility, I think we go down the drain.
I've got a question. Dr. G, you mentioned yellow journalism, the return of that. Do you believe that yellow journalism is being used by both the left and the right? Because I see that, but I would love your thoughts on it.
There are a lot of sources that I see on social media, and that come from both sides of the aisle, and I really question about the authenticity of the information. And so it's just one of those things that yellow journalism, using sensation, like you said, the attention-grabbing headline to get people eyeballs, to get clicks and everything else. But one thing that's never discussed, well, I shouldn't it's never discussed, but for example, local newspapers, with economics of today's media, you don't have as many local newspapers, and so more and more people are going out to national sources for their information and not getting local information. And so I think that's being problematic because of Wall Street and taking over media companies. Says, okay, you need a certain return on investment. We'll shut the local newspaper down, which is a very strong conduit to democracy and knowing what's going on in your neighborhood. One
of the smartest people I ever met was my father-in-law. Passed away in 2003, but he read the local paper, and he read, local papers, they have a national, they have an international, maybe there's not a lot in there, but they have, and he was if he saw something in the international section of the local paper, it would cause him to look further into another source, either by watching the TV that night, another half hour in international, or he'd find another paper to look at. And again, given his age, he wasn't when we had internet and the things were at our fingertips. I know somebody, or the same thing, or local radio.
Or
radio,
local media in general, and like Sigmund does, hopefully providing information to the region,
like this program,
exactly. And so the thing is that if you don't have those sources because of the homogenization of programming, that you don't have local programming on radio stations out of, say, Knoxville or whatever, that's programmed somewhere else and it's owned by Clear Channel that owns thousands of stations across the U.S., you don't have that localism. I wish Dr. Vogel was here because I know that he was big into localism and some of the regulations that go with it.
So journalistic localism, where where, for instance, here at the Sigmund Communications Center here on the campus of LMU, we have people producing news. Some of your students working with Ashley Collinsworth and so on.
Absolutely.
And I want them working out in the community, meeting community, understanding community needs and everything else. What stories can they get? And so that's part of I guess you could say that's part of service-based learning, having them out there and producing content that they can use, that hopefully that meets a certain Sigmund standard, and that they could put on their portfolio to help them get jobs after they leave.
Well, I tell students, I teach state and local government, I tell them all the time that local news and local politics in the local area, that's the heart of America. We are a collection of states that at one time didn't see themselves as states. Now we become a union. We got stronger. We got a central government, but it's the local area. It's the folks right down the street who fill my potholes, who allow me to have a new entranceway on the highway, who come out and test the water when it's bad or good. I live down in Speedwell. They just tarred the road, and that road hadn't been tarred in 25 years, but those folks finally put the money and effort out there, taxpayer money. That's the heart of America in my view. But we still have to keep. We vote. I mean, we vote every 4 years for senators, or it could be House members or president, and we need to understand what's going on, and we have to be able to trust the media in some way. There's no way of two.
Would that be a route to civic involvement too?
Yes.
Local, because it seems to me a democracy and a republic works much better when the locals are informed of what's happening locally, but they're also looking at it in the region, in the nation, and the world.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You're right. Media or news or whatever, even on a local standpoint, contributes to civic engagement and democracy in general.
Well, I want to thank you all for listening. It was a wonderful program. Dr. G, Dr. Vogel providing their expertise, and Gary providing some excellent questions to us, to them. And I appreciate all of you listening. Again, this is American Culture, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. We are GAP Radio, 91.3 FM, Cumberland Gap.
And support for this afternoon's broadcast and webcast has been made possible by Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee. Further information on academics, campus life, educational programs, admissions, and financial aid, and much more, you can find it at www.lmunet.edu. This afternoon's program was produced by Dr. Martin Sellers. Our technical producer is Gary Daniels. Our student production assistant is John Hobbs. Our program director is Clay Stanifer. And our executive producer is Adam Haley. Our theme music is White Horses, as performed by Tierra Negra and Muriel Anderson. American Culture, Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences at LMU will rebroadcast again on Saturday at 10 a.m., Sunday at 8 p.m., and next Tuesday at 7 a.m. This has been a WLMU radio production.